Oh, let us say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. First and foremost, we thank each and every one of you, again, individually and all of you together collectively, for the co-creation of this interaction and the allowance for us to experience through each and every one of you another facet, another perspective, another point of view and experience of all that is. We would like to begin this transmission by talking about an idea to give you more clarity on the concept of manifestation. It has been labeled, has been recognized by many different names in many different cultures, not only on your world, but other civilizations as well. One of the names you have given the idea of the manifestation space comes from your psychological disciplines and has been referred to generally, loosely, as the collective unconscious. It can be referred to that way. It can be referred to as consensus agreement. It can be referred to as the idea of manifestation space, as we have done by labeling or titling this transmission that way. But primarily, it is really all about what might be termed the primary belief. Now, the idea is as follows. First, it is important to realize that you don't have to learn to manifest. You're manifesting, obviously, all the time, or you would not be having any kind of a physiological experience at all. So you're always manifesting. This isn't about learning how to manifest. This is about learning how you already manifest, so you have more conscious recognition, more conscious awareness over the process, understand more clearly the mechanism at work, and how you actually transform concepts from a non-physical, higher level, higher dimension reality into the physical experience that you're all having. The idea begins, of course, with the formation of what we have termed the physical persona, the personality that is composed of the definitions or belief systems and the emotions and the thought processes that then combine to form the behavior of the physical individual that you have chosen to be, to experience yourself as. But in creating the fundamental definitions that underscore that personality construct, that creates within your consciousness a certain resonance, a certain frequency. That frequency then is translated into your reality as what may be collectively called a state of being. That energetic state of being, that particular consciousness frequency, then radiates, in a sense, within your consciousness, ripples out from that center point, just to give it a focal point for you, physiologically, to relate to, and is reflected back. Now, that reflection is not actually happening, of course, outside you. It is happening, again, within your consciousness. But we're calling it a reflection for illustrative purposes to make it, again, easier to understand how the mechanism works, at least by analogy. That reflection, then, encounters something very specific. For you to experience the reflection in the way you do as the experience of physical reality, something specific has to happen. And this is where the manifestation space or the prime belief system actually comes in. This truly primary belief receives the reflection and does something very specific with it, changes the frequency, the resonance, in a very particular way that can be translated by the phrase, "This is real." Without that primary belief telling you that the reflection you're experiencing in your consciousness from the state of being you're creating with your definitions and beliefs, without that phrase, without that recognition, without that enhancement, you would not be capable of experiencing physical reality as if it were real. So manifestation begins in the physical experience with that prime belief that this is real. Now, as you expand your consciousness and begin to recognize more and more often that physical reality is your projection, is your construction, is in a sense an illusion and not really real in the sense that it doesn't really exist outside of you. It is a construct within your consciousness. But by telling yourself it's real, thus then being capable of making it appear to be outside of you, making it manifest seemingly around you, in your life, in your physical reality. But expanding your consciousness starts to break that down because you are starting to recognize and realize that physical reality is an illusion. You're starting, in a sense, not to pay as much attention, so to speak, to the prime belief that this is real. You will still pay enough attention to the prime belief, the manifestation space, to still have a physiological experience, but the idea of becoming aware that that's the way it works and that's the way you reinforce the illusion by having the prime belief that allows you to buy into the collective consensus agreement that what you're experiencing is real, you can still make it more malleable, more flexible, even while you're having the physiological experience. It can become more slippery by allowing yourself a little bit of leeway to start breaking what we call the continuity illusion, the manifestation illusion, the prime belief illusion that this is real. Don't misunderstand, the experience of physical reality is real, but physical reality itself is just a projection, just an illusion, and isn't real unto itself without you manifesting that experience by telling yourself over and over again, every moment, that this is real. So when you begin to wrap your mind around the understanding that there is a specific space, a specific resonance point within your consciousness that we are calling the manifestation space or the prime belief that is reinforcing the idea that what you're experiencing is real, you can now begin to play with it a little bit more consciously. Again, not completely letting it go, but allowing it to be a little bit more plastic, a little bit more malleable, so you can begin to work with it in more conscious ways and allow yourself to begin to manifest the things that are truly more in alignment with your preference, with your resonance, with your true signature vibration, instead of manifesting things that might be out of alignment with it. This will also help reduce the amount of processes that you might need to arrive at any particular point in your life. By allowing things to work for you instead of believing that you have to make them work, you will allow this manifestation space, this resonant point within your consciousness to begin to truly align with the fundamental frequency of your being, and in so doing, allowing physical reality as a projection to become a little bit more transparent to you as a projection, thus allowing for more slippage in your space-time experience and the breaking, as we said, of what you typically call continuity, where things can manifest much more rapidly, where there doesn't have to be as much attention paid to the concept of time or space in which manifestations appear to occur. So by just knowing and just visualizing and just imagining in any way, shape, or form that works for you, this resonance point within your consciousness, this manifestation space, this prime belief where you're telling yourself, this is real, and allowing that to become a conscious, or at least more conscious, directive that you're telling yourself about the reflections you're creating within your consciousness, you can begin to see things start to break apart a little bit more. Things become a little bit more magical in their manifestation. The increase in synchronicity can be quite profound when you wrap your mind around and pay attention to the fact that you have that manifestation space, that resonance point within your consciousness that is constantly reinforcing the idea of physical reality as a real experience, as a real thing. So the more you pay attention to that, the more you're aware that that exists, the more you may, in your journeys through life, as you follow your passion to the best you're able, with no insistence on a particular outcome, actually find yourself capable of manifesting things that are far more representative and far more reflective of your passion, of your joy, of your synchronicity, of your being, of your creativity, of your love, of all the different ways that you might choose to express yourself in positive and constructive ways within your life, by knowing that you're the one that determines whether something really is real or not. Now, again, there is the consensus level to this where you will not necessarily let go of all that you have agreed to in terms of playing this game called physical reality on Earth. And certainly, you can relax some of your agreements, however, with the consensus to start allowing whatever it is that is more representative of you as an individual to begin to appear in your life, to begin to manifest in ways that serve you, while knowing that when you do that, you are actually also serving the whole, serving the consensus agreement, because it's about becoming the piece of the puzzle picture that you were created to be, more clearly. And just being in that shape will allow other pieces to also simply be the shape they were created to be, so that all the pieces fit together more seamlessly, more harmoniously, more effortlessly in that way. Now, again, the idea of manifestation, as we will remind you, please understand again, as we have just described, it is not something you're doing in terms of bringing something from somewhere else to where you are. Everything is here, and everything is now. Much of it might be invisible to you at this moment, and that's all right, because it's operating on a frequency that is representative of someone that you are still in process of becoming. And as soon as you become that person, as soon as you match the frequency of that invisible thing that is already here, then you begin to perceive it. So this idea of wrapping your mind around this manifestation space, this resonant point, this prime belief, this is real. As soon as you start really playing with that and start recognizing that that exists within you to reinforce the reflection much more often with your awareness, then you will see that the manifestations will occur automatically, because you're simply shifting your vibration and recognizing what has always been here that is relevant for you to experience in your life. And it will always appear in perfect timing when you are focusing on that resonant focal point and knowing that you're the one telling yourself that this is real, this is real, this is real. But the awareness that you're telling yourself that, paradoxically, does a little bit of just the opposite. This is an illusion. This is an illusion. This is an illusion, because I have to tell myself this is real in order for it to be an experience. If you didn't have to tell yourself it was real, then yes, it would be real in the classic meaning of that term. But because you actually have to convince yourself it's real, that tells you that it's not real. It's an illusion. The proof, in a sense, and we know that sometimes you don't necessarily think about physical reality this way, but the proof, in a sense, is as follows. We have talked about the idea that you are really an indestructible, eternal, and infinite being, and that everything exists here and now, which means you do too, that there is really only a single moment, there is really only a single spot. That means existence, in a sense, is permanent. The fact that things in physical reality are not permanent should tell you everything you need to know about the fact that it's an illusion. That's why it breaks down over time. Because it is an illusion, because things that are actually real, like your existence, never change. They're permanent. So the very fact that you see things break down over time, disintegrate over time, get worn over time in your physical reality is a sign that what you're dealing with isn't real. that you have to actually work to maintain it over a period of time by convincing yourself that it's real. But over time, that loosens its interest. It loosens the bond. You start to recognize as you become more aware that physical reality is not real. And that's why even within the consensus, things start disintegrating, deteriorating, falling apart, because you're the one that has to hold it together to perpetuate it. So the very fact that physical reality is impermanent tells you it's not real. You're the one that's maintaining it. You're the one that continues to manifest it. And the changes that occur are the changes that are relevant for you to understand in whatever way it's important for you to understand that physical reality is just a projection and it's not something that needs to last. But you will, because you exist and you have that fundamental quality of existence. Is this making some sense to all of you? Yes. All right. So let your mind just sort of ponder the idea of the manifestation space of the prime belief, where you are taking reflections created by your belief system and using the prime belief to convince yourself this is real. And by realizing that you're doing that, letting yourself relax the reality factor so that it can become flexible enough for you to begin to allow it to align with your fundamental vibration sufficiently to begin to experience manifestation on a whole new level. Deal? All right. It's up to you. We thank you then for allowing us to transmit this idea, this seed of change to you. Let it grow within you at whatever rate is relevant for you in whatever way is best for you. In return for the gift you have given us, we ask now, in what way may we be of service to you? You may begin with your dialogues and questions if you wish. A little say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right, thank you. Once again, we thank each and every one of you individually and all of you together collectively for the co-creation of this interaction. We would like to begin this transmission by stating the title, Shedding New Light on Negative Beliefs, and present to you a new way, a new perspective of looking at how negative beliefs function so that you can have a clearer idea of how to let them go, if that is what you prefer, of course. We have had many conversations with many of you in which people have stated that they feel certain energies that are blocking them, certain kinds of energies or forces that are preventing them from doing this or doing that. Sometimes even talking about the idea of external forces and external energies that don't allow them to do one thing or another, or are allowing them to feel that they are being controlled by some other kind of force or energy from somewhere. The first thing that is very important to understand in this concept that we are sharing with you today is that anything that you experience internally is your energy, no one else's. It cannot be any other way. You have your energy, and everything you experience in life is made of your energy, is happening in your energy. Now, this doesn't mean that there can't be other beings that you may be interacting with or aligning with that have their own energy and maybe have their own agendas and maybe have their own intentions. Whether they be beings that are human or non-human isn't the point. The point is that no matter what anyone else's agenda may be or intention toward you may be, the only way you can experience it is by matching the vibration with your own energy and thus creating a representation of what it is they may be attempting to pass along to you but you're creating that experience, that internal experience of what you call their energy out of your own energy, because that's the only thing you have to work with, is you, in your reality. So the idea, bringing this down to the concept of beliefs, and more specifically, the idea of negative beliefs, we have talked about the idea how negative beliefs, like any belief, will attempt to perpetuate themselves, doing whatever they need to do to prevent you from letting go of them. But when you feel the idea, when you express the idea that some form of energy is stopping you from doing this or that, it's very important to remember that all you're actually feeling is your energy. Beliefs do not have their own energy in the context of this concept. They have to use your energy and get you to feel your energy in a certain way in order for you to have the experience that you are assigning to them as their energy. So they are borrowing your energy, siphoning off your energy, filtering your energy through the belief and reflecting it to you in a certain vibration that is representative of the belief in order to give you an experience that something else is controlling you, something else is forcing you, something else is pressing its energy upon you. But it's all you. Every single bit of it is your energy. So in order to make this idea a little bit clearer, we would like to use an analogy, since we have titled this Shedding Light, of the light bulb on your planet. A light bulb has no power of its own. You have to plug it in or screw it in to the socket where the energy, the electricity, is then capable of reaching the light bulb and illuminating it. Beliefs are like light bulbs. You are like the electric current. When you screw in a particular belief, then that is the bulb that lights up. But it doesn't have energy of its own. All you have to do is recognize that it is simply an, shall we say, delivery system that lets you know that energy is being run through it. It is an indicator that energy is being run through it and activating it, illuminating it, allowing you to experience that feeling, that sensation that the energy is coming from something somewhere, and I don't know where, and I don't know if I'm in control. But again, it's all you. And all you have to do is unscrew the light bulb, and it will go out. Stop feeding it the energy. It will have no way of illuminating. It will have no way of allowing you to feel anything. You will know you are not being controlled by anyone but yourself. But when you filter that electric current, that energy, through the light bulb belief system, you get what you are flowing the energy to. You get that particular light turning on. But you can turn it off very easily by understanding that it is something that has no energy on its own. You can imagine actually unscrewing that negative belief and being able to look at it in a neutral state for what it is. It's just a light bulb. It's just a device that lets you know where your energy is flowing. So if you don't prefer the feeling, if you don't prefer that feeling of some energy coming from somewhere or some force blocking you or preventing you from doing something, you just have to start seeing that as your energy flowing through a light bulb of a certain type. And if it's not the type of illumination that you prefer, imagine yourself literally unscrewing that light bulb and just looking at it now that it has gone out and realizing that you can change it. You can screw in a new light bulb that is one of your liking, one of your preference. Let's look at it another way as well, continuing this analogy a bit further. Imagine yourself in general as absolutely transparent, so transparent that other people might think of you as invisible. and light passes right through you. All sorts of forms of concepts and energy pass right through you, just like a glass window. Nothing impedes those things. The things that you experience are only when you decide that certain areas of that transparent being need to suddenly become translucent or opaque. You create that opacity that allows the light now to have a place to reside, either translucently, where it lights you up in that area, or even completely opaque, which means then you start reflecting that light back to others based on whatever the opaque area is designed to reflect, be it positive or negative. So another way to understand that this energy is always flowing through you from source is to understand that if something is feeling a little out of alignment, out of whack, as you say, off kilter, there may be belief systems that are allowing certain areas of your being, of your existence, to become more opaque or translucent, and they can be allowed to become more transparent, allowing that energy to just flow right through you like a window. So it doesn't stop. It has nowhere to reside unless it's something that you prefer. And then you can grab it and become opaque in that area and reflect back that light to others, knowing that it is exactly what you prefer to reflect. And you can decide in what areas you choose to be opaque and what vibrations you choose to be opaque. And those things that don't relate to you, those things that you don't prefer, those things that have nothing to do with you being you, let them be transparent. Let the light pass through. They have nothing to do with you. That energy is for someone else to interpret in their own way. For someone else to take that light bulb and screw it in and get illuminated based on that vibration, that concept, that frequency. So imagine yourselves now in any given situation that you have experienced, maybe experiencing now, or will ever experience. Imagine that sensation that you are feeling, some kind of energy, some kind of force. It may feel like a blockage. It may feel like an emotion. It may feel like fear, for example. But you have to begin to understand that you are simply feeling another state of your own energy. It cannot come from anywhere else, because even if it does, as we said, you still have to create your own version of it in order to actually have an experience. You have to match that frequency to have an experience of it. And by doing that, you are making that happen. You are creating that sensation out of your own energy. No one can affect you directly in that sense. You have to agree to affect yourself. So allow yourself to start really understanding that whatever it is you experience internally in any way, shape, or form is made out of your energy. It's all yours, you own it, and you can do whatever you prefer to with it. And start thinking in terms of beliefs being these little light bulbs that you can unscrew and screw in as you prefer to do so. Choosing the illumination that you prefer. Use this analogy and it will begin to work for you. Practice with this, and you will start to understand that the beliefs themselves have no power. They're just a device to allow you to feel your power, your energy, in the way that you believe at that particular moment works for you, be it positive or negative. Because remember, you don't experience anything that you don't believe serves you. So even if you recognize you may be choosing things that you empirically and intellectually understand do not serve you, the only way you would be choosing them and having that experience is you have a belief system, you have a light bulb that you're passing your energy through that illuminates the situation in such a way as to make it seem to be the thing that does serve you. And then you have something to work with, because you realize that the only way it would appear that way is because of the light bulb that you've screwed into the socket. Unscrew it and watch it go out. And take a moment to examine all the different beliefs, all the different light bulbs. Choose the one that you prefer. Choose the kind of illumination that you prefer. And screw that one in. The same energy that powered the negative one will power the positive one, because they don't have power of their own. It's you that's powering them all. Every single moment. Does this make sense? Yeah. All right. So you can use this as a different analogy for the concept of enlightenment. Oh, let us say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. Thank you. Thank you once again for the co-creation of these interactions and the allowance of this transmission in this way at this time. We would like to begin this transmission by reminding you that it is titled Nature's Social Network. The idea being that there are a variety of ways that different elements, different expressions in nature communicate with one another, because you are all immersed in a web of energy and information. But there are very specific ways in which these connections in the energy web are expressed depending upon the expression of nature. First, we remind you that you do not exist in nature, you are nature. Your bodies are an expression of the nature of the reality that you have chosen to experience. We know that for some time, many individuals within humanity have, in the past, thought of themselves as being separate from nature, maybe living in it, maybe being surrounded by it, but not necessarily considering themselves to be of it. But you are. Your world has given you the ability to crystallize a physical form out of the elements of nature that exist in your reality at your vibratory level of energy, rendering that energy, crystallizing that energy into what you call the perception of matter. So you are absolutely an extension of nature on Earth. But in societies that exist on your planet who have forgotten that, not everyone, but many, then there is an important need to allow yourselves to begin to experience yourselves once again, as you did long ago, as expressions of nature. This would be the first step in being capable of perceiving and connecting in a conscious way to the web of information, the web of energy that connects you all, that connects all nature, all things, in your experience of reality. But we will begin by describing one of the ways, or two of the ways, or maybe three of the ways, we will see, that different expressions in nature have of expressing this connectivity and utilizing this connectivity in a variety of ways to support life, to support consciousness and its expressions in your reality. Let us begin with the trees. We have talked about the idea from time to time that trees, in a sense, are very much like antennae protruding upwards into the sky from the earth. And the way they are structured, based on certain mathematical ratios, they are sensitive to many different kinds of higher level energies, and they can, like an antenna, receive those energies in the very fine tips of their branches and leaves, and transform and transmit and step down and allow that energy to be guided into the earth, to be used in a variety of ways, to be tapped into by whatever needs to tap into that energy at whatever frequency is relevant for the different life form that may choose to tap into that energy and utilize that connective energy web. But more than that, deep underground, in the roots of trees and plants, there is another expression of this connective network, this social network. In any given group of trees, you will find in these forests that the roots of the trees, in whatever way they may choose to spread out, are also connected to what has been termed in your language the mycelial network. The mycelial network is a type of growth of fungal filaments that attach to the roots and go from one tree to another, to another, to another, to another, throughout the grove, throughout the forest. So in a forest where the trees are dense, all the trees are connected underground by their roots through this fungal mycelial network. Now, this network of filaments that connect all these roots are not only for the purpose of transmitting energy, are not only for the purpose of transmitting information, but they provide a true demonstration of the intelligence inherent in all life forms on your planet, whether you think they are necessarily intelligent or not. Not only can information and energy be transmitted through the mycelial network in much the same way that your neural net in your brains transmit impulses, electrical impulses, between all the different neurons, this mycelial network can transmit those kinds of impulses, but also serves many other functions. The mycelial network can actually transmit water from one tree to another where water may be lacking. So the trees that are receiving more water will know through the information of the mycelial network which trees may not be receiving enough water, and they will actually intentionally send more water through the mycelial network to the trees that require it. They will send food and nutrients through the mycelial network as well to the trees that require it. This is a true transport system underground for the trees of a forest. And there is vast amount of information, vast amount of exchange going on under your feet when you walk through a forest, like an underground subway network that you may not even have been aware of going on just a few feet underground, right under your feet. All this talk, all this communication, foodstuffs, water, impulses back and forth, it's very busy going on under there. It's its own kind of city. Now, sometimes you can tell where these mycelial networks might be because one of the offshoots of the fungal filaments might be that at a certain point, mushrooms and other fungal forms will come up through the ground, showing you exactly where some of these mycelial networks may have blossomed into another expression and form of life that then aids and assists and adds to the overall communication web going on in that forest. One of the things that has come down through stories and legends on your planet is the idea of what you call fairy rings, which are usually described as the idea of mushrooms in a circle forming a fairy ring, as you call it, to which different forms of nature spirits and elementals may be attracted, or you may be able, if you are able to perceive them, find them gathering in those areas. This is because it is their form of connecting to the mycelial network. They actually can use that ring, and it grows in a ring for the purpose of actually allowing other beings of different frequencies to tap into that network when they need to. In a sense, you could say, euphemistically, the fairy rings of different kinds of mushrooms that crop up from the mycelial network underground so that there can be an interface with different kinds of nature spirits to that web of information, are almost, in a sense, kind of like their Stonehenge. You understand? So it forms that circle to capture that energy, to transmit that energy in a very efficient way. It forms a kind of energy web lens by being in a circular form, and that helps aid and assist in the amplification of the energy, of the information, and it also transmits it to the particular vibration needed for the elementals and the nature spirits to be able to access that information based on their nature. Now, there are other forms of communication and social networks in nature. When you're talking about the idea of the elements themselves, not elementals, but the elements themselves, what you would call the hard minerals, what you would call rocks, what you would call boulders, what you would call foothills, what you would call mountains. There is another system that is concurrent with what we are describing that uses the energy web in a different way. One thing that only very few of your scientists have begun to realize and are beginning to investigate is that there is what we might term a deep resonance field that exists that is, generally speaking, on a vibratory level that is below your ability to sense. If you are sensitive enough, you can feel it, you can tap into it, but generally speaking, it is not always audible to you. It is a very deep, thrumming, vibrating, resonant energy, the deep energy resonance field that is part of the electromagnetic field of your planet that it issues, but it is tuned and pitched in such a way that it actually forms a communication network between all of the crystalline minerals and rocks and mountains on your planet. This is the vibratory level of the nature of that kind of consciousness, of mineral or crystalline consciousness. And it communicates readily in a variety of ways through that deep resonance field. Now, some of your scientists are also beginning to understand and realize that everything is made of consciousness. Everything is self-aware in its own way. It may not be self-aware in the way that you express it, but nevertheless, it is still a reflection. It knows itself as a reflection of all that is in its own way, in its own interpretation. And they are recognizing that consciousness is pervasive and permeates everything in creation. Very few cutting-edge quantum physicists are beginning to explore this. The term they have used for this is called panpsychism, or the idea that they are now beginning to express that there is a proto-consciousness field that exists everywhere, and out of which consciousness in its various forms of expression may arise. So the proto-consciousness field itself is another way that many beings throughout creation will form this sort of energy net and energy web. This is generally what is used by what you would call animals on your planet, humans on your planet, in a variety of ways. They tap into the idea of this consciousness field. And based on the configuration of the consciousness, in other words, what kind of a being it is, because the kind of being you are is a description of how you are energetically arranged as a kind of a matrix to filter this consciousness field through yourself and express it in the ways that are germane and relevant for the description of what you are, of who you are. So animals, humans, all that kind of life will utilize the consciousness field and will, through themselves, filter it in such a way as to create different frequencies, different vibrations that are given off that are specific to those particular types of animals, those particular types of beings. So this is what it means when you learn to talk cat, talk dog, talk fox, talk dolphin, talk any kind of animal, is picking up on the specific resonant frequency of the consciousness field that they are using, their particular wavelength, their particular, well, if you wish, radio station, to dial in yourself to those frequencies. Now, the idea of humanity, in a sense, not being in any way, shape, or form better than any of this, has itself, by definition, one interesting and unusual difference in all of this, and that is not that other animals can't do it if they need to, but the idea of humanity, of what you would call sentiency in your form, has the ability to actually, and is built into the ability to actually go up and down the range of these frequencies we are describing, so that you can tune in, so that you can, in a sense, funnel through you all the different wavelengths, all the different frequencies, all the different forms of communication and resonance to express an amalgamation of these ideas, a kind of combination, a kind of synergy of all these ideas. You are the form on Earth that can process all of this into one large overall understanding and expression of holism on your planet, which is why you think of yourselves in many ways as the stewards of the earth, of the land, the humans, of the sea, the dolphins, and the whales. So the dolphins and whales also have this ability to go through a range of frequencies very naturally to pick up on and tie together and link together and express synergistically the idea of many different kinds of forms of life and expressions on your planet. This is why, in a sense, it is given to you to be the caretakers. Now, in the past, because of negative definitions and negative belief systems, many humans on your planet have thought that this meant that you have domination over all the other life on your planet. This is not the case. In the old interpretation, in some of your ancient scriptures, where it says that mankind has dominion over the earth and all life on earth, the ancient term dominion in that sense meant caretaker, not overlord. So the idea is dominion is given to you to be the one to process and synergize and caretake and represent all the different forms of life on your planet and nurture and support and give life to all of these things along with them in a way that creates this holistic net to be amplified and magnified so that all life forms can pick up on the information they require to sustain themselves in the best possible way, the most beneficial possible way for all concerned. In a sense, you have the ability to actually become the frequency of the net itself, and thus, in any given situation or circumstance, connect into whatever kind of consciousness expression you need to, be it the trees, be it the animals, be it the rocks, by simply being sensitive enough to the fact that you are the synergizers to go within yourself and get more precise ability to tell the difference between the different frequencies that are expressed by the different forms of life, so that in honing in on those frequencies, you can have the kinds of ongoing communication and exchange of information that is possible to have with all the different forms of life on your planet. You form your own nature social network on a certain resonant frequency that is itself representative of the combination of all the frequencies. Is this making some sense to you? Yes. All right. So the idea, again, is that, of course, everything expresses itself in a different way, a different modality. And it's about really tuning in and, in a sense, taking on the mantle of that modality and expressing it as strongly through your reflective aspects, your reflective nature as you possibly can to strengthen and amplify and reinforce that modality for that form of life. So when you are learning to communicate with a dog, with a cat, with a bird, you are actually taking on the resonance, fine-tuning to that resonance, and reflecting it back in a way that actually starts a back and forth kind of energy beat. And in that energy beat, as it levels itself into that particular frequency, you then start to perceive communication in the form in which it is expressed from that animal, because you are expressing that aspect within yourself, because you contain all those frequencies that are representative of all the animals and all the trees and all the rocks and the sky and the sea and everything on your planet. So it's about becoming a very fine-tuned station, a very fine-tuned antenna, receiver, and transmitter, so that you can really start to perceive those different frequencies in a very fine-grained way and really lock into them much more strongly, so that you can amplify that vibration between yourself and the life form you are communicating with, and then start to really interpret and transceive the communication in the modality that it is expressing itself from, because you become like them. This is the secret of the shamans, in the sense of actually being able to tap into parallel realities in such a way that they actually represent themselves as the animal they are in communication with. This is the source of the idea of seeing shamans turn into birds, turn into jaguars, turn into various animals. It's not in a sense that any molecular rearrangement has happened. What is happening is that, like the sages that Willa has spoken of, they have the ability to understand their connection to parallel versions of themselves in parallel realities so strongly that they can actually represent themselves and bring in a representation from a parallel reality strongly enough that you actually perceive that parallel reality representation instead of the human form that was basically in the parallel reality that you inhabit. So they are presenting a reflective mirror so strongly that you think they have actually changed their shape. You follow me? But all you're getting is a reflection from a parallel reality, because the shaman is being a perfect mirror angled at just the correct angle to reflect that parallel reality expression of their consciousness from another parallel reality into your consciousness. So a shaman is a perfect mirror that operates at different angles, reflecting different realities to you. You understand? It is not about the idea of molecular change. That's not what shapeshifters do. They take advantage of this consciousness field in such a way as to extend beyond the consciousness field of what you consider to be your universe and go into the consciousness field of other universes, and therefore can reflect things and expressions of consciousness from those other parallel realities into the reality in which they originated. So this all comes down to the idea that you are ensconced in, embedded in, immersed in a titanic, infinite social network of energy webs at certain vibratory levels, and you can tap into these more consciously as you start to explore within yourself your caretaker nature to all of nature, and remind yourself, again, first and foremost, that you are not above nature, not below nature, not separate from nature, but are nature. So find your natural selves. This is why we suggest to you in many occasions that it's not about finding out how to be normal. It's about finding out how to be your natural self, because your natural self is tapped in, does understand these connections, and when you relax the idea of what you think you're supposed to be and actually allow yourself to be what you are as nature expressed you, you will find yourself being a part of nature, not separate from it. And these kinds of communications and your ability to tap into nature's social network, you will find will already be inherent within your skills, your talents, your abilities to perceive this more and more readily. Does this make sense? Yes. All right. So let us proceed in a natural way and open up to the idea of sharing at this time, if you wish.
We will now deliver the monologue for the transmission that we have called A Step Along the Way. This is for the purpose of allowing you more efficacy, more ability to stay in the moment along your path, on your journey, and allow you to have a clearer understanding of how your higher mind, your passion, and synchronicity work together to allow you to take the steps necessary for you to navigate through the different parallel versions of Earth that are more and more reflective of the version that you prefer to experience, or the versions, more precisely, that you prefer to continue to experience as you shift moment to moment to moment. The primary point of this particular transmission and title is really about learning to relax into the moment, of letting go of any insistence on the concept of a goal that you're attempting to achieve, a place you're attempting to get to, some destination out in the so-called future. Not that you will not experience the idea of outcomes and goals and destinations, but these things are experienced along the way. In other words, please remember this. Your journey, no matter how you experience it, whether in physical reality, whether in non-physical reality, your journey never ends. There is no ultimate place you are attempting to get to. If you understand that everything that's important is happening right now, nothing more important will ever happen, as you say, in the future. It will just be a different thing, equally important to whatever's going on right now. You can begin to relax into the now, into the moment, understanding that as your passions are presented to you, in terms of whatever form they come in, by synchronicity, that these experiences, the willingness to act on the things that contain more passion, more excitement, more curiosity, more attractiveness, are simply in the moment, there in that form to get you to take an action that represents the step you need to take at that moment. As we have said before, just because your excitement presents itself in a certain way, in a certain format, doesn't mean that that format always has to come to fruition. Sometimes it might, but many times it might not. At least not in the sense that that will be the next thing that manifests. Again, it may, but it may not. So the idea is to start really looking, start really connecting to the things that present themselves to you as opportunities to act on that are representative of your passion, looking at them only as a step along the way on your journey. Nothing in that sense is the ultimate goal. The only thing that is truly, if you want to call it a goal, the ultimate goal, is being yourself. And it is the synchronicity and the passion and the higher mind that allows you at every moment to be yourself by giving those things to act on that represent your true vibration, the fullness of your being. As you step from stepping stone to stepping stone on the journey, on the path that you are, it's very important to really pay attention to what is happening right here and right now in every single one of those moments, in every single one of those stepping stones, and really savor it for what it is right here, right now, as simply a step along the way. No matter how exciting it may be, never assume, never insist that that particular presentation, that particular experience has to be an ultimate thing, has to unfold in a certain way. It is nothing more than a step on the journey of you being yourself, which is really the entire point of the experience. Yes, they're presented to you in certain ways that are reflective of the personality you have created yourself to be, of the way in which you designed, so to speak, your theme to be this person, this personality, this reflection, this aspect of all that is? Yes, of course it is. And that can make it seem as if this personality must achieve this thing in this particular way by this kind of time, or that something has gone wrong. But this exercise, this idea, and the meditation that will follow in this transmission this day is all about really relaxing off of that idea and really just allowing it to flow through you in the moment, no matter how it comes to you, no matter how exciting, how passionate you may be about something, not to lose the passion, but not to rigidize it, not to structurize it in a way that insists that it must unfold in a certain way, because you really don't know, you really do not know exactly why it came to you in the way that it did. And this is why we are explaining to you that no matter how it appears, no matter how much energy might seem to be behind it, no matter how much synchronicity there may appear to be, it is simply a step along the way on your journey of being yourself, which is really the only goal. Everything else is an expression of that goal, but are not the goals themselves. The idea of coming to fruition in anything that excites you is all well and good, and many times it will happen. But even coming to fruition in a particular way that the passion may have presented itself to you is not the ultimate goal. It is just another step along the way, another part of the overall experience of your unending journey of being yourself, of discovering yourself from a new point of view, of just existing in the moment, savoring the moment, experiencing the moment, being you as fully as you can in every moment with everything that's presented to you, no matter how it looks. Whether you prefer it or not, it's there for a reason. Use the moment. Use it up fully. Dive into it. Stay with it. Don't ignore it. Don't attempt to get beyond it. Don't rush forward trying to get somewhere else. This moment, whatever is happening in it, is the key to really experiencing the fullness of your journey, so that you are really validating and savoring every single stepping stone, every single one. For if you're not using it fully, then it's not there to support you to get to the next stepping stone. You create gaps that you cannot get past if you don't really fully appreciate what's going on at this particular moment on your journey of being you. It's very important for you to focus on the idea of being you. You may not always know what that means, but you will find out. You will discover it if you just relax into the understanding that everything that comes to you is simply just another step along the way. It's not an ultimate goal that needs to be achieved. It's not a place you have to hurry to get to. There is no clock. You're not running out of time for anything that's relevant in your life. If you stay in the moment and just experience everything that comes as another step along the journey of being you, then everything will unfold in perfect timing, and you can feel yourself going with the flow of your truth, sailing along smoothly as you go from step to step to step, knowing that everything, every step, is just another step along the way of the journey of being who you truly are. So begin to breathe and relax into this idea that there's nothing more important than the now moment, because it is the now moment and in the now moment that you will discover by your interactions with what's happening at that moment who you truly are. And that's the most important thing you can do, to really allow yourself to move through your journey, to be your journey, and know yourself more deeply, more fully, more truly, and feel the fulfillment of the reflection of all that is and all the potential within you that will unfold, yes, over time, because that's the focus you have. But you will feel the fulfillment as you go, that every single moment has been savored to its maximum, so that you know you have left nothing out, left nothing behind, ignored nothing, that you've paid attention to everything that's there, and truly absorbed everything that has been brought to you at that moment. Because there is nothing irrelevant in this moment. There's nothing irrelevant in this moment, and there's nothing irrelevant in this moment. Every single thing is the orchestration you have agreed to participate in. When we take you through the meditation, we will continue the idea of how to breathe in a more relaxed way into every moment, so that you truly begin to experience your passion, things you do prefer, things you don't prefer, interactions with others, reflections that you may get through synchronicity, everything that comes your way, messages from the higher mind, messages from spirit guides. Whatever it is that's happening, you'll be able to experience it simply more and more and more as another beautiful, orchestrated step along the way of the journey that you are.
Good day. This transmission has been called What Happens When You Sleep? Sweet Dreams. The idea is that there are many different levels of things going on while your body is at rest, and we will start at the level of the physical. So, of course, when you are tired, when you go to sleep, on the physical level, you are relaxing the body, de-stressing the body, allowing your mental facility and observations to sort of shut down in the outer direction, turn them inward, so they can allow you to process information from your experiences of the day, to allow you to reorganize, your perspective on things, and of course, physiologically, to allow your body to repair, to heal itself in the deep delta sleeps. The idea of the cycles of 3 cycles per second to 7 cycles per second allows your body, allows your chemistry, allows your cellular nature to, again, regenerate, revitalize by tapping into deep reservoirs, deep reserves of energy, allowing the energy to build back up to a certain level. The idea, again, is this can be very healing, can allow things to come back into alignment on a cellular, atomic, and subatomic level by relaxing all of the output that you experience on your daily waking regimen. So physiologically, as you all know, it is very healthy, very aligning to relax, to rest, to de-stress, to give the body a chance to go back to its natural state as much as possible, and then to feel revitalized when you wake up in the morning. Now, on the astral level and on the mental level, you have the opportunity, as I said, to sort of re-look at everything that happened in the day, reorganize your thoughts, allow yourself to learn lessons, allow yourself to extract information from your experiences of the day, and on a broader level, from the mental reaching into the astral, allowing you to start recognizing connections to other things, how everything is interrelated in the experiences you've been having, to give you some insights into how you may be able to move forward in physical life, having more awareness and more understanding of associations and relationships between different events. This happens on that high mental, lower astral level as you are resting, as you are recuperating, as you are energizing. But then on the higher astral, there are many different things that are going on while you are asleep. Again, not only the noticing of different things that may have happened in your physical life, but also being able to go to what we call the template level reality, where you can examine the basic blueprints of your agreements in life, make certain adjustments as may befit the idea of the themes that you chose to explore, examine and consider new avenues, new pathways that might be more representative of who you truly are and your path of least resistance. The idea, of course, is that as you allow on the physical level more and more de-stressing and relaxation and more aligning of your belief systems, then the things that are going on that you're learning on the astral plane can more readily be incorporated into your physical consciousness, your physical personality when you wake up. This often is what happens when you do, in fact, allow yourself to wake up feeling very refreshed, very eager to get on with your day, very excited, feeling more calm, more certain, more confident. This is when you have a real alignment between what you're doing on the astral plane and what you allow yourself to absorb on the physical plane by having aligned your belief systems and let go of those beliefs that are negative or fear-based and don't serve you, that are no longer relevant for you. You feel a new surge of energy because now the pathway between the astral level and the physical level is clearer and allows more energy to flow in a more hyperconductive and superconductive way. And this again results in more energization when you wake up in the morning. But not only are you allowing yourself to look at your agreements and your alignments and your associations on the astral plane and make whatever adjustments are necessary there for you to move forward in your physical reality experience, there are other things going on at the same time when you go a little bit higher into the astral level. Many of you will be attending different kinds of classes, spirit classes, where you are learning many different kinds of things about your relationship in the creation of your physical reality experience, many different kinds of ideas of who you are as a greater being. Many different ways are shown to you and taught to you. Choices are given to you to make on that level. You are learning about yourself as a spirit in relation to physical reality. You are learning to make certain kinds of adjustments beyond the physical in your energy, in your consciousness, that may be, again, more beneficial for you when you allow yourself to wake up into your physical dream, so to speak. But again, the idea is that the more you can clear yourself of negative or fear-based beliefs, the more you will realize that this is going on the astral level, that you may be attending, for lack of a better term, seminars and classes that teach you things that could be more applicable in your physical lives, that would allow you to experience your physical reality in a much more joyful, much more creative and imaginative way. But you have to really clear that path on the physical level to allow the physical personality to be capable of absorbing what you're learning more clearly on the astral levels. Now, going a little bit higher, there are things on the higher astral or spirit levels that you may also be engaging in. You may be interacting with spirit guides and friends and your soul family on that level, exchanging information and ideas, exchanging experiences for each other in various ways that may be helpful to each being's personal experience, either in physical, astral, or spirit reality. Making decisions for what it is you are attempting to accomplish as a greater being, what it is you are learning on the soul level that can aid and assist you in moving forward in the future, not only in physical reality, but in spirit as well. You may also be interacting and practicing for other things you may do when you leave the physical reality, like perhaps being a spirit guide yourself, being trained in that way. You may be attempting to assist individuals who may be having a challenge in their death, who may be remaining in the lower astral realms, not disconnecting from physical reality in the way that would best serve them. So you may be practicing to help them to be a spirit guide and help them cross over in easier ways, in more joyful ways, to recognize they may have in fact passed on, which sometimes many spirits don't, based on their belief systems. To aid and assist them in becoming more of who they are from the spirit side, as well as those who may be inclined from the physical side to help those ghosts cross over as well. This used to be known as the idea of a spirit guide from the physical level, a spirit psychologist, so to speak, but has sort of devolved into this idea and misinterpretation of exorcism. So the idea really is that it used to be that spiritual psychologists from the physical side and spiritual psychologists from the spirit side could aid and assist in the crossing over of many beings to help them adjust to the idea and remember who they truly are in spirit and move forward in that way. Now, aside from the physical and the astral levels and the spirit levels, in terms of the things you may be learning and the things you may be practicing for what you may call the future of your involvement on the spirit level as a spirit yourself, you also then are presented with many different pathways and many different choices for what might come next. Maybe not even remaining in the idea of the earth plane or the earth focus, so to speak. You may be more aware on that level now of connections that you have made to other dimensions, other extraterrestrial societies. And on the extraterrestrial question, in the process of sleeping and going to the higher spirit levels, you may now be more aware of the agreements you have made with regard to the evolution of the earth, the hybridization agenda, the creation of the hybrid races, the coming of the hybrid children to live among you physically on earth eventually, and the blending together that will allow earth to evolve forward into what we have termed the sixth hybrid race. But you also, on that level, may be very, very aware of the connections you have made to different extraterrestrial civilizations. You may now start to really allow yourself to play out and experience alternate realities, counterpart selves in those civilizations of Sirius or Pleiades or Arcturus energy or what have you, and allow yourself to really start to incorporate some of that information, experience, and energy more fully into what it is you are experiencing when you wake up in your physical reality on Earth, giving you the opportunity to broaden your perspective that Earth is really truly part of a galactic family, and therefore
again, by clearing out certain belief systems and fear-based ones in your physical personality, can more fully absorb what you're learning on the higher spiritual planes with respect to your connections to extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional civilizations and their experiences. And you can even on that level start to experience how they experience the idea of sleeping and what happens for them when they dream, what happens for them when they travel astrally. Because again, even though all spirit in a sense is the same kind of spirit, every different spirit has its own experiences in the reality that they have allowed themselves to dream they are in. And therefore you can really start seeing the interconnections, the inner workings, the relationships between all the different civilizations that form a kind of galactic family, a galactic soul family, and may even on that level start to really experience the connections of higher levels of the soul, the oversoul, and the connections and extensions it may have with regard to the idea of the different civilizations as well as parallel reality counterparts that you may be connecting to. All of these things can be going on when you sleep. You are very active because remember, spirit doesn't really sleep. Only the physical form does. And again, this is mostly to regenerate, to recharge your batteries. And the reason for this, again, is because physical reality is something that isn't real. It's something that you have to continue to project. And because it's not really real in the sense of being solid and an actual place, you have to maintain it, so to speak, because it's not your natural state. You require reconnection to your natural state to bring through the energy and maintain the illusion that physical reality is real. And the way that you fundamentally know that physical reality is not real is that it deteriorates, because what is real never deteriorates. And therefore physical reality, by expressing deterioration, decay, coming apart, segregation in that sense, separation in that sense, that's your first clue that physical reality is nothing more than a projected illusion of consciousness, and that you have to maintain it, even physiologically. You have to upkeep things and so on and so forth. And all of those things that have to do with maintenance and upkeep tell you that physical reality is a temporary manifestation, a projection of your consciousness, and isn't really as real as your true natural self, which requires no maintenance at all. In spirit, you don't sleep. In spirit, you don't eat. And all of these things are simply representative of the fact that this is your natural state, your natural eternal state, your infinite state. And from that state, you can explore many things as we have just outlined, and many other things that we may discuss at a future date. But you are, when you are sleeping, very busy on other levels in a number of different ways. And we are happy to present all of these different ideas for your consideration. And we will also add another exercise at another time that will allow you more opportunity to more consciously be aware of what you're doing on the astral and spirit levels with regard to Earth and extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional connections. But until then, allow yourself to simply, when you drift off to sleep, realize how involved, how connected, and how busy you are when you are not active in physical terms, when you're not really living the physical dream per se. There are many things going on, many exciting things you are learning, many amazing things you are doing, and we will leave you with that for the moment until such time as we give you the meditation exercise that will help anchor this in at the end of this transmission. But for now, all right, we will say good day, and we thank you for allowing us to transmit to you this day ideas regarding the idea of state of being, circumstance, and synchronicity. While many of you have been experiencing more synchronicity in your lives by using the formula that we have outlined, following your passion to the best you can, no assumption, no insistence on the outcome, remaining in a positive state no matter what manifests so that you can gain the benefit from it, we have come to realize in various conversations that there may still be a little bit of misunderstanding or confusion or lack of clarity about some of these concepts we have discussed with you in the past. Therefore, today, in this transmission, we would like to provide a little bit more precision in the understanding and explanation and definition of these concepts of state of being, circumstance, and synchronicity, and how they work. So the idea is to understand, first and foremost, that some people, when we talk about circumstance, and we have said circumstance doesn't matter, only state of being matters, there are many things to understand about this that will help clarify this concept. When we talk about the idea that circumstances don't matter, we don't mean that they don't have value. We don't mean that you should ignore the circumstance. Some people have taken that phrase in this manner. What we're saying is, circumstances are the result of your state of being. They don't cause the state of being, your belief systems do. And when your belief systems create a state of being, that's what generates your reality experience, the reflection you get in your physical reality that creates the so-called circumstance or situation that you experience. So while the idea is that the circumstance isn't what creates your state of being, it can still be used to understand what your state of being is. Saying that it doesn't matter simply means it isn't the causation of your state of being. Therefore, don't go off the circumstance as if that's what's responsible for the state of being you're in. Always look to your belief systems first to determine why your state of being is the way it is, why your vibrational frequency is at the level that it's at. Therefore, you can always use your circumstance as a guiding mechanism to get in touch with what you would have to believe is true in order to have created this reflection, this circumstance. But sometimes you will just create circumstance to gauge what your state of being is, to be able to tell, like a reflective mirror, well, because of this circumstance and these things being arranged in this way and this prop here and that person there saying this thing at this time, look to your response, look to your reaction to those things to help you illuminate what your belief system is that's creating the state of being that is giving you this reflective circumstance in order, again, to get in touch with what the belief system is. It's kind of a circular tool. The idea is then not to ignore the circumstance as if it has no importance or no value, but to utilize it to gauge for yourself more clarity in what you believe to be true, that is therefore creating a vibrational frequency that brings about this particular circumstance in order for you to understand more clearly what your belief system is, in order to reveal what that is to you more clearly. So it's about using the circumstance in the way it is designed, in the way it is built, not just ignoring it and thinking you can change your state of being without necessarily understanding why the circumstance is what it is as a set of props in order for you to get in touch with what the belief is that created the state of being to begin with, that brought about the circumstance. Also, connecting to the concept of synchronicity that brings you these circumstances in exactly the form in which they come, it's very important to understand how synchronicity works in a little bit more detail. It's all well and good when you allow yourself to recognize synchronicity, when it brings you an opportunity that is representative of your passion, and it brings you the ability to act on things in the direction of your passion, and it brings you signs and signals that you learn to interpret as being representative of your path, which again is represented by the vibration of your passion. But also, there are times when people might become a little bit confused, a little bit frustrated, why certain things are not going in the direction you thought that they would. Well, again, of course, this ties into not having insistence or assumption, as we have said many times. But the idea also is that synchronicity will work not only to provide you an opportunity to act, but more importantly, will sometimes provide you an opportunity to not be able to act in the direction that is not representative of your path of least resistance. Many people don't understand that synchronicity can use the negative side for positive reasons. So your inability sometimes
to actually go forward in a certain direction is also an indication sometimes of synchronicity, showing you this is not the next step to take. This is not the direction you need to go in. This is not the path of least resistance, even though at first it may have seemed so. So it's important to really clarify in your observational skills, in your discernment skills, the ability to tell when synchronicity is not only telling you, yes, act on this, but is also telling you, do not act on this. You don't have the ability to act on this. This is not going to take you further. And you have to pay attention and have the discernment to tell the difference between when synchronicity is telling you, this is not something you can act on, or whether or not is your own fear-based belief telling you not to go forward. We understand that this can be sometimes a little bit challenging to tell apart, but nevertheless, once you begin to understand a little bit more clearly that synchronicity can work this way and actually prevent you from moving forward on a path that is not yours, you'll be able to tell the difference through practice between your own fears stopping you and synchronicity simply putting up its hand and saying, no, not this way. Look for the other way that contains your passion. Don't keep trying to go down this path, because right now, this is not the path of least resistance. This is not representative of the passion that is truly you. So the idea is that synchronicity and circumstance and state of being all work together, kind of in a triad, to help give you the guidance and give you the ability to know where you stand as a navigational tool, so to speak, at any given moment, to let you know what is something to act on, what is not something to act on, and to observe these things, to stay in that state where you look at your state of being, where you look at the circumstance and the value that it brings you as a reflection, and you understand and look at the synchronicity and how it is working, both in the ability to act or the ability not to act. You can gain in that process more insight into exactly your timing, your pacing, making sure that you are exactly where you need to be when you need to be there in terms of your state of being. And remember, please, it is not about trying to get somewhere more than it is simply being exactly where you are in that process. Never assume you need to rush forward. Never assume you need to go faster than you are or slower than you are. The idea is that the synchronicity in working with state of being and circumstance, if you are willing to have this discernment and realize all the different ways this is working for you and use these tools in the way they can work for you, you will then always be willing and excited to stay in the moment, in the process, because that's the most important thing right there. Not where you need to go after that, but right there, that's the whole idea. That's the whole reason why whatever is happening, is to be in that process and in a state of being and in a circumstance synchronistically where you are examining your belief systems, finding out what the value of the circumstance is as it came to you, discerning what synchronicity is telling you about moving forward or not moving forward at that particular moment in that particular way, and adjusting your state of being and first and foremost your belief systems in order to allow your state of being to bring you the circumstance and the synchronicity in the form in which it is most clear and working most precisely to allow you to take the best possible advantage of the formula and the instruction manual that we have shared with all of you. So let this sink in, ponder this, and allow these things in this moment that you ponder them to simply come to you and work for you. Again, you don't have to be anywhere else more important than what's happening in that moment, and just dive deeply into it. Meditate on it, think about it, however you wish to do it, but stay with that triad of state of being and circumstance and synchronicity, and really give yourself an opportunity to learn to develop the discernment to find out exactly what each of those tools is working for you and how it works for you best, by just staying right there with it and not being in a hurry to be anywhere else. We thank you for allowing us to share this little tidbit to make these things more precise, more clear, to work with them in a slightly different way that will accelerate you forward in life. in perfect timing.
All right, I'll say good day to you this day of your time. Today's transmission is reincarnation, a deeper explanation. Now, you will be shown a chart that has two different representations of the concept of reincarnation upon it. The top image represents the actual mechanism of simultaneous multiple incarnations happening all at once. The lower portion of the graphic will detail the idea of how you experience the concept linearly. In other words, why you actually think it is reincarnation, with the same soul having lifetime after lifetime after lifetime in linear order. As you can see from the top portion of the graphic, the idea is that the oversoul extends itself into different souls represented by the different colors, so that you know they are different souls, and each of those different souls creates its own higher mind and physical mind, which is represented in the physical realm down below by the different colored boxes which represent the different persons that you all consider yourselves to be, individuals that are independent of one another. But what you can see by the black arrows between the squares is that this energy connection that exists, these cross connections that exist between all of the physical personalities that are going on simultaneously, allows you to extract information, experience, guidance, what have you, like a giant cosmic internet, constantly exchanging information, plugging and unplugging from whatever individuals you need to in order to extract the information that guides you in life. But you can see from the top mechanism, the actual mechanism, that it's all happening at the same time. It all exists all at once. But now when you impose the idea of linear space-time on the concept and allow yourself to perceive reality a moment at a time, which, as we have said, is actually a perception of the same moment, but from different points of view that you interpret as different moments linearly, one after the other, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. What happens then, from your perspective, is that the space-time reality, the space-time perspective, or what could be called the space-time lens, or space-time prism, or space-time filter that you impose upon your consciousness, just like a prism bends light, the space-time filter or lens bends the idea of how the interconnections exist between different individuals, so that it no longer exists simultaneously or is perceived to exist simultaneously. It is now bent upwards to make it seem as if the same soul, that is an extension of the oversoul, is experiencing over and over and over again an incarnation in linear terms, one after the other. You can now see that the black arrow in the chart below is bent upwards to go back into the soul level, so that it appears as if the same soul is having different physical incarnations, one after the other. But the mechanical truth is the graphic up above, without the idea of the bending of the space-time reality. So you can see that just because the space-time lens makes it appear as if the same soul is having incarnation after incarnation, the truth is these are different souls, different extensions of the oversoul, each of which is having its own physical experience that's connected to every other physical experience through those horizontal little black energy arrows. But again, because those arrows get distorted by the space-time lens, you perceive it in a linear fashion. Knowing that it's actually all happening at the same time, and knowing that the idea of reincarnation is an illusion, can help you understand how to live more in the moment, how to plug in and unplug to the other
entities, the other physical beings that you may need to extract information and experience from to aid and assist you and guide you in this particular life, as they may be doing with you as well to guide them in their lives. And you can understand that all beings exist simultaneously. All things do. So if you can allow yourself to begin to see the illusion, the distortion, in a sense, that is created by the physical space-time lens, then you can begin to operate in a more immediate, more present way, living in the moment, knowing that you can make whatever connections you need to make, knowing that you are making whatever connections you need to make, plugging and unplugging in a dynamic way. It's not a static thing. A life that you feel you're connecting to now may not necessarily be the life that you will connect to in the years to come, or you may keep recreating that connection if you feel it is of benefit to you. But this is why. This is the explanation for why. You have heard many people say, oh, I used to be Cleopatra. I used to be Julius Caesar in one of my incarnations. That's the perspective of the distortion caused by the space-time lens. But if you understand the simultaneity of everything, as represented by the upper portion of the graphic, you can realize, of course, any being can connect to any other being. And that's why you can have 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people all saying, I used to be Cleopatra. Because it's not that they actually were Cleopatra, because Cleopatra exists exactly at the same time you do. But 1,000 people can make an energy connection to Cleopatra in the present, and thus download information that may, through the distortion of the physical space-time lens, make it seem as if that was you, because you're assuming that the same soul is having these incarnations over and over and over again. So this explains the idea of how a multitude of people can connect to the same individual and download whatever information they need from that individual, and understand that it's not that it was your past life, but that it is another person existing at the same time that has their own life, but you get to extract whatever information from their experience of life that you need while they can do the same to you. Who knows how many connections Cleopatra has? Who knows how many times Cleopatra may have assumed, oh, this must be coming from one of my future lives, when in fact, again, it's all simultaneously coexistent. So, again, this helps you live more in the moment, understand the mechanisms and how different a description of the mechanism can be from a description of what appears to be the experience from a space-time lens perspective. Again, the most important thing to take away from this is the changing of your definitions from outmoded ones, outdated ones, old-fashioned ones, so that you understand that there can be a vast difference between a description of the experience, or how the experience appears to be happening, as opposed to how the experience is actually mechanically happening. So if you start from the premise of understanding that everything exists now, you can then decode, in a sense, and decipher and translate the experience, and realize that the description of the experience, again, is not necessarily a description of how it's actually happening, how the experience is being truly created. And you can start to deconstruct these ideas of old-fashioned definitions of experience and begin to truly understand the modern understanding, the modern definition for your 21st century of the actual mechanisms behind everything you experience in physical terms. So we thank you for allowing us to share with you this idea, this day of your time, to bring you more into the present and give you an opportunity to understand more deeply how mechanisms of consciousness work, so that you can learn to differentiate between the experience and the mechanism, and use modern definitions to propel you forward in understanding of how you create your reality, so that you can do so with more consciousness, more awareness, and more efficiency. And this will make all the difference in how you experience your reality.
All right, I'll say good day to you all. And of course, we will express to all of you a happy new year, a new orbit around your central star, and remind you that it is the year before the window of open contact begins in 2023. Again, starting slowly, but definitely crossing a threshold in more ways than one. But today, we will discuss why you are here in physical reality. We understand many of you have many challenges with physical reality as an experience. And we know that many of you yearn to connect more strongly, or at least feel the connection more strongly that you have with spirit. But the idea is to remember that you chose to have this physical experience for your own purposes, for your own growth, because physical reality, being as dense as it is, spiritual energy, a densification, a crystallization, as it were, of consciousness, not a place unto itself exactly, but going on within your awareness, is for the purpose of exploring and examining things in a different way, a different time frame that allows you the opportunity, as we have said many times, to discover new aspects, new perspectives of yourself. But this idea of choosing to experience physical reality has many benefits that you can take advantage of for your own personal growth as a soul, as a being, as an aspect of all that is, as a reflection of the infinite, by learning to stay within positive frameworks, positive belief systems, positive outlook, positive expression, positive actions, energetically speaking. You can experience many wondrous things by exploring physical reality in that state of being, in that energy, that will allow you to experience the process of change in a way that will enhance your understanding, enhance your ability in the future, not only to grow for yourself, but to aid and assist others and serve others by having these experiences and becoming familiar with all the different kinds of challenges that you can have while experiencing the concept of physical reality. It gives you a repertoire, it gives you a library to aid and assist other beings who may not be as familiar with that experience, so that you can become living examples of how to navigate the idea of physical reality, discover how it can be easier and easier to give yourself the freedom to choose what works for you, the freedom to understand what is truly in alignment with a positive flow of energy, and to be able to impart your experiences to others who, again, may not be quite as familiar with the idea, or who may be facing challenges that they don't have the tools to transform. So it is very important, not only for your present experience, but also for what you call the future of your planet, that more and more of you truly learn to master the so-called limitations that you have created, that you've set up for yourselves, the challenges you've set up for yourselves while experiencing physical reality, to master them and transmit them, that experience, that mastery, to others in your own way, in your own words, to understand the principles upon which you have agreed to play this game with each other, and to what degree you are following the consensus reality, and to what degree you can allow yourself to move in your own individual direction simultaneously, in harmony, with full awareness that you have chosen this experience, and therefore full awareness of how you can use it to positive effect in many different ways. Allowing your imagination, your creativity to come into full play, to apply that creativity to every experience in your physical reality, to truly transform your awareness and your understanding of your relationship to all that is in this way,
so that you can allow all that is to experience, all that it can be, through the idea of new experiences. Even though everything exists, it is the experience, as we have said, in the relationship, the perspectives that are new, because every single one of you is unique, a unique expression of all that is. And this holds true in physical reality as well. Even more so, in a sense, because you can do so many more things in physical reality than you can do in spirit. Now, that may seem like a contradiction, because we know that spirit allows you to experience greater things, different things, broader things, more expansive things, perhaps, than in physical reality. But physical reality has unique things that cannot be experienced in spirit. Your ability to utilize space and time, the framework you have created in which to experience this concept of physical reality in your consciousness, can be played like a musical instrument in many ways. You can create new orchestrations, new understandings, new relationships of space and time within your consciousness that will create beautiful music within all that is, beautiful new perspectives within all that is. This is an art form, physical reality, and you can learn to master it by following the idea of the formula, cosmic compass, as we say, the idea that there are ways in which you can understand how you are agreeing to play by the game of physical reality and play it in your way, uniquely, harmoniously, beautifully. Take advantage of this opportunity. It is a gift. No matter how challenging it may seem at times, no matter how dark, no matter how negative it may seem at times, mastering this has everything to do with how you define your relationship to it, how you allow the challenges that come up in your life to be there for a reason, your reason, to really let go of any negative reflection of these ideas and know that even though you may recognize objectively that something may have been created from a negative space, that none of that has anything at all to do with how you will experience the effects of it in your life and become a living example of how to master and transform limitation into freedom, not only for yourself, but for others as well. Many others need these abilities, need to see in all of you that are willing to do so how such things can be transformed to positive effect. So it's about becoming teachers, living examples, masters of limitation, so that you can shine forth in the physical world and paradoxically start to dissolve the idea of how solid physical reality appears to be. For again, it is nothing more than a projection of your consciousness, though played earnestly and sincerely to the degree where it seems so impenetrable, so solid. Yet now, because of your increased awareness, your expanded awareness of yourselves as spirit, it is becoming less so, more flexible, more malleable, more changeable, more transformable, more magical, more synchronistic in terms of your experience of what physical reality actually is as a mirror of what you believe to be true. So examine your beliefs, choose the ones that work for you, no matter what the scenario, no matter what the circumstance and situation. Use your imagination and creativity to figure out, how could this serve me? How can I learn something from this that can serve others? Always let that be the first question, no matter what crops up. How can this serve me? Use it that way, and you will turn yourself into a master magician and a living example of what others can also choose for themselves by seeing in you the willingness to know that physical reality was your choice, that you're willing to take responsibility for being in physical reality, and you're willing to expand your consciousness to the degree where you can allow physical reality to be your new musical instrument to play a beautiful song, a beautiful orchestration, a beautiful harmony that will invite and induce others to sing along, to play along with you, and allow physical reality to become something that you cherish, that is really truly a part of you in your experience forever and ever, that you are willing to utilize that way. This is why you are in physical reality. This and many other reasons of your own choosing. Use them well, use them wisely. But be present in them. Be present in this physical reality. Do not worry about the past. Do not worry about the future. Physical reality only exists in the present, just like everything. Be in it right now, as fully as you can be, as boldly as you can be, as lovingly as you can be. Be present and act from that presence. All right, good day, good day. This transmission is titled The Gray Zone: Misunderstandings in Metaphysical Concepts and Misinterpretations and Why They Come About. Now, when we say the gray zone, we are not discussing the gray beings. We are talking about the idea of a blending of different concepts, a limbo state that connects to and relies upon old-fashioned and outdated paradigms in an attempt to explain metaphysical concepts that creates misunderstandings and misinterpretations. And we will provide the key to eliminating those misinterpretations, misunderstandings. Now, again, remember that there is a difference, as we have said, between the description of an experience, which is valid, and the description of the underlying mechanism that is creating that experience, which is also valid. Even though sometimes those two things can seem diametrically opposed, the idea is to simply understand the difference between a linear-based description within time and space, based on concepts that you're used to thinking about, and a newer, more modern understanding of the underlying mechanisms that create those experiences. So to allow for more clarity, it would be more wise to be able to recognize and acknowledge both simultaneously. On one level, saying, I am choosing to create an experience of such and such, while simultaneously I understand that the underlying mechanism is this or that, so that I am not assuming, nor in my communications about metaphysical concepts, allowing you to assume that I believe that the emotional and experiential description has anything to do with the actual mechanism at hand that is creating or allowing me to create the experience that I am describing. So that these two things can be acknowledged simultaneously as equally important, both the experiential description and the description of the mechanism, allowing you to have the experience while not allowing anyone to assume that you necessarily think that the description of the experience explains how the experience was created or why it's happening, thus creating more clarity, more distinction between those two states, so that you can use them more flexibly, and so that there is no confusion about what is actually being said. So the idea, as we have given examples, of things like reincarnation, where in the old paradigm you say, well, I have lived before as this other person, I may live again as another person, instead of understanding the actual mechanism of everything exists simultaneously. I, the person I am now, have never been another person, because that other person exists at the same time that I do, even though it is separated by the illusion of time and space. To use the word time in this concept, saying it exists at the same time,
means it is happening simultaneously. All things are happening simultaneously. All things existing in one single timeless moment that, when you look at it from a linear perspective, appears to be stretched out in a moment after moment after moment sort of paradigm. But again, thinking about it from a linear perspective, viewing it and attempting to describe it from the linear perspective of one life after another, while it can be created as an experience, is not a description of the mechanism, since the mechanism is that everything exists all at once. But by stretching it out in a linear sense, you can create the experience of having had these other lives, when in fact what you're actually doing from the present is simply energetically creating connections to other lives that exist at the same time, other people that exist at the same time that you do, drawing upon those experiences, downloading their experiences to aid and assist you in the themes that you're exploring as this person in this life, while they may be doing the same with you, downloading your experience and information in whatever context works for them in their lives, because they exist simultaneously with you. They are not becoming you reincarnationally. You have not been them reincarnationally. You both coexist simultaneously and are sharing information in a dynamically, constantly changing web of informational exchange, energy exchange, experiential exchange, so that each of you can form the information and rely upon the information you need to explore the themes that represent who each of you distinctly are as individual aspects of creation. So the way that you can allow yourself to move forward with a clearer understanding of metaphysical concepts is to go back to the framework we introduced some time ago called the 5 laws. If you remember, the law is, number 1, you exist. Number 2, everything is here and now. Number 3, the one is the all are the one. Number 4, what you put out is what you get back. Number 5, everything constantly changes except for the laws. So when you use that as your basic framework, as your basic template to understand any metaphysical or spiritual concept, by comparing the metaphysical concept to the structure of the 5 laws, you can begin to realize the true underlying mechanisms as opposed to the description of the experience that you are having. For example, the first law, you exist. When you have a complete and deep understanding of what that means and how it means you cannot cease to exist, even though you may change your expression, you will always be you from your perspective experiencing things, that you cannot cease to exist, then you know that death is not the end of anything. It is simply a transformation into another state of being, be it physical or non-physical, doesn't matter. And therefore you can use that law to understand that there is really no such thing as death as you think you have understood it experientially from your linear perspective for thousands upon thousands of years. When you understand the second law, that everything is here and now, as we just described reincarnationally, you will understand automatically by your depth of understanding in that second law that there really can be no such thing as actually having been the other person, mechanically speaking. You can have that experience. You can always create the experience. But it is the fact, the mechanical fact, that everything exists simultaneously that allows you to have the experience of using and viewing that mechanism from a linear perspective that allows you to have the experience of having lived before, the so-called memory of having lived before, which is just your interpretation of the ongoing, presently existing energetic connection you have made to those other people, past or future. When you understand that everything is all the same thing expressing itself in a variety of different ways, then you know there is really no such thing as disconnection. You don't necessarily have to have the experience that you call disconnection, pain and suffering, because you know that you are always connected. Even if you create the experience of disconnection, you have to create that from the understanding that you are always connected. So you can choose how to use your connection, how to know that everything is one thing expressing itself in different ways, and that it is not possible for you to actually mechanically be disconnected from existence. But you can use it to create the experience of disconnection. Use it to create the experience of disempowerment. Use it to create the idea that you lack trust, lack confidence. You can use it that way, but you have to understand that paradoxically, because everything is one thing expressing itself in a number of different ways, that you are just simply using that connection in a variety of ways that could be negative or positive, mechanically speaking. When you understand very deeply that what you put out is what you get back, you can understand that physical reality is a guiding mechanism that is showing you exactly a reflection of the vibrational resonance and frequency that you are giving off with your belief systems, be they conscious or unconscious. When you understand that change is the constant within creation, you understand that the changes you go through is your relationship to the thing that never changes, which is the structure of existence, which are the 5 laws. So it is a deeper understanding and a remembering of the 5 law structure that would act as a filtering system and a template for you to compare any metaphysical concept you come across to that structure, to see what metaphysical concepts are being thought of as a reflection of an experience, as opposed to how to understand that metaphysical concept mechanically, the underlying mechanism that allows you to have the experience. So a deeper understanding of the 5 laws will allow you to compare any metaphysical or spiritual or even non-spiritual concepts against that, to know that that is the structure of existence. That's how everything works. It is always a combination of those laws that creates every experience you have. But at the same time, being clearer about what those 5 laws actually mean, going deeper into your understanding of them, will allow you to automatically start understanding and seeing the difference between an experience of a metaphysical concept and the mechanism that underlies it. Again, for example, the concept of psychic functioning or predictions. If you know, again, that everything exists now, then it is not a surprise that someone who is tuned to a parallel probability reality could pick up on the idea that that reality that you could shift to may have a high degree of energy behind it, a high degree of momentum behind it, may be the most likely manifestational reality to occur if things do not change. But understanding the 5th law, that everything changes, gives you the opportunity to say, well, if I understand that that prediction is not necessarily a prediction of the future, but a prediction, a sensing of the energy that exists in the present, because everything is here and now, then I understand that it's simply an opportunity to know where the energy lies now, and to know that in the 5th law, everything changes, that if it doesn't necessarily have a lot of energy behind it, or the energy behind it can be changed, then the prediction doesn't necessarily have to manifest if it's not something that you prefer. And by adding energy to it in a different direction, by defining it in a different way, by using it as simply a present day sensing of where the energy is, instead of an absolute prediction of something that's inevitable or unavoidable, then you can use the law of change to add energy to it in a particular way that can allow the prediction to render itself obsolete by having known what it is telling you about the present energy. So again, using the 5 laws and comparing metaphysical concepts that you have lived with for thousands of years against that framework can give you far more clarity about what the mechanical truth is behind many of the metaphysical or spiritual experiences you may have in your life. So we would always suggest and recommend and encourage you to look more deeply into the 5 laws, understand them much more clearly, And that will give you the template to carry through life so that anytime you have a metaphysical experience, even if you want to validate it as an experience, which is fine, it will still simultaneously give you the clarity you need to understand the mechanism that goes along with it, so that you don't necessarily think that the experiential definition is a description of how those things actually work, which can cause much confusion in people who are coming into a clearer understanding or a growing understanding of metaphysics and spirituality. We thank you for allowing us to share this idea of this gray zone where these things can get blended in to provide more clarity and take them out of confusion, take them out of misinterpretation, take them out of misunderstanding, so that you can move forward with the idea of metaphysics in a more modern way, and it can serve you to create the reality more consciously that you prefer.